Okay. Hello and welcome on this Halloween night. I'm hoping that you've all had an exciting day. Thankfully, like my little monster's in bed and hopefully going to stay fast asleep. Those that recognise my voice will know I'm Rebecca Robertson and my job title is a financial planner non-investment. I'm the proud owner of Evolution for Women, and I'm also director and active advisor myself, so I have lots of clients and people that I speak to. What I find when I'm speaking to my clients is I end up spending a lot of time not just talking to them about maybe the mortgage that they want or the life insurance that they want. I find that my sort of long-term skills that I've collected over the years, I just can't help myself imparting the information that will help them and their family, not just at that point of getting that particular service, but also in helping them in other ways, where it's budgeting, for example, which is what we're here to talk about tonight. So I just want to briefly talk about budgeting, and everyone had a different reason to budget. So the first question I ask people to think about is their mindset. Now, this is something I talk a lot about in my Money Makeover, which goes into a lot more detail. So in that respect, I'm just skimming the surface. And your mindset is really what type of spender you are. Because it's a bit like if you might think you do or you don't drink a lot, but to somebody else that might mean that you do or you don't drink a lot. So it just depends. It's just doing a bit of self-analysis and asking yourself the question, what kind of spender am I? Because then when you look at it retrospectively, once we've completed some of the exercises we're going to talk about today, you can reflect and look back and actually, is that what I thought? Is that good? Is that bad? And it's a really it can be a painful process for some people, because it can be a little bit of an uncomfortable realization maybe. Others, it can just be really enlightening and really refreshing. So you have to go into it with a sort of open eyes, and I find a lot of people that get the most out of this are the people that really don't do any budgeting or any self-analysing at any time, and people that are sort of feel that they're quite good at it, and they generally are. It'd be more of a case of that they can maybe add to those skills and give them maybe some structure around some of the things that they didn't do before. So the first question to ask yourself is what kind of spender you are, and you can just think about, generally. The second thing to think about is your goals. So we all talk about, especially if you're a woman in business, you'll go to lots of networking events and you'll meet lots of people, and it'll be very much about what your goals are. What do you want to achieve? What's your big picture, your 5-year plan, etc. And it's something that we're all conscious of achieving a certain goal, whether it's flexible working or working from home or whatever it might be. We have a sort of a goal in mind. But what I'm talking about is financial short, medium and long-term goals. So a short-term goal might be having an emergency fund or going out for an evening. A medium financial goal might be an annual holiday to Florida. It might be a new car. And a longer term goal might be saving a deposit for a house, for example, or having an investment in place, or building a portfolio, or those sort of longer term investments or goals. So that is something to think about, because when we go on to the budgeting in just a second, it all does fit together. So we'll come back to that point, and that will make more sense in just a second. So this session today is called Budgeting Beauties, and it literally is on budgeting. So I'm not trying to go sort of too high in the sky and sort of speak quite general. I'm hopefully going to give some great ideas to those who need it. So I'm just going to check my chat box and my Facebook to make sure there's nothing urgently popping up on there, and to ensure that nobody is missing out on the chat box. There's no particular questions that are popping up. No, we're all looking good. So in that case, I'm going to get straight on to this budget planner. Okay, so this is a tool that I use. I give it to my clients, and those that have are registered will be sent a copy, so you will get a copy of this. And can I just say, I'm not an accountant, okay? So those that are in business, I'm not here to tell you how you should run your accounts. I'm just simply giving you hopefully some tools to help you budget and plan, basically. So if you haven't got a bookkeeper that knows a good accountant, or a bookkeeper, they can't really give you tax advice, but they can certainly give you some gentle guidance, then you should really go and get an accountant, and even if it's just a consultation, to get some guidance about how to run your business accounts. So what we're really talking about at the first point of today is the personal budgeting. Now, the first thing to think about is all in this spreadsheet is the pink. Okay, so these are what I would call your main expenditures. So they generally mean that they are items that go out every month and they don't normally change. The only one that might slightly change is potentially your mobile phone, for example, but the rest of these are quite sort of set. So your mortgage or car insurance, that might be sort of more of an annual, but generally, hopefully if you haven't had too many claims, they should stay the same. Your phone line, your water, your gas, your electric. Along the columns along the top, so B, C and D, you have Mr, Mrs and joint. Of course, I'm not assuming you might be a Mr and Mrs, Mr and Mr, or a Mrs and a Mrs as a couple. You might be with your sister, so you might be sharing with your sister and a miss and a miss. I get a lot of first-time buyers that are like that. So you can just change these to suit how you wish. But a typical scenario would be a Mr and a Mrs, and then they'd also have a joint account. So you can just ignore whichever one is not relevant to you. It won't change the spreadsheet at all, but it's just there additionally. So sometimes Mr will pay certain bills, Mrs will pay certain bills, and then certain ones will come out of a joint account. So whichever way you're looking at it, it's fine, but just to bear something in mind, along the bottom we're going to talk about income in a second and how it all adds up. So we'll come on to that in a moment. So I'd suggest you get a notepad at the ready, because obviously you know, there might be something that you springs to mind and you might forget about it, and as you haven't got the spreadsheet in front of you physically, then you can't make notes on it. So it's just worthwhile, if you haven't got one, or if you've got your phone in front of you, use your notepad, or if you've got your iPad, make some notes in that section. So what the best thing to start with is not to guess. So not to look at these and think, oh yeah, I roughly pay about 20 quid a month. That's really dangerous. I had that with a client the other day, and reality is we don't always look at these every month. What we think they are, they often get, if they're sort of bills and contents, they might automatically get renewed. You might not review them regularly, and you think you're paying 24 and you're actually paying 34. It can get confusing. So the best thing to do is to either go on your online bank accounts, or to get the printed copies you have sent in the post, and to, depending on how you prefer to do it, but personally I find if I'm looking at a screen and a piece of paper, I find that easier than a screen and a screen, sort of flicking between the two. That I find that hurts my eyes. So I personally do online banking, so I would print out the last 3 months and have them in front of you, and then you can see there's the consistencies. You can see the ones that are stuck in stone, the ones that don't change. And this list is quite comprehensive, so you shouldn't miss anything, but you can add rows if you wish to. That's fine. You can change the names of things if you wish to. This would be yours to do as you wish once it's sent to you. So it's best to go through your gas, your electric, and just try and find all those items on that bank statement. That job should be quite straightforward. Okay, so as we start to move down, you'll see that petrol is in blue, gym, eating out pub, cigarettes are in blue, and that's all we have in blue. Now what that means is that they're things that you would pay each month. You would definitely pay out for that each month, Possibly if you commute to London, you might have this one as a blue, travel as a blue, for example, but they might change a little. So you might not go into the office every day, or you might not drive the same places every day. So in other words, you know that you're going to have to pay petrol, but you don't know always what it's going to be. So by looking at your last 3 months bank statements, you can start to see what the pattern is, and the best thing to do is to add them up, add up all the BP transactions, or the Sainsbury's petrol pump transactions in the month, add it up into a total, and do that for the last 3 months. Okay. Now there is a section on the next tab, so you have just clicked, I've clicked for monthly budget over to essential and non-essentials. I'm going to come on to this in just a second. However, that's where you can start to help with your averages if you're not quite sure. Okay, so you would pop in your average for your petrol, and the same for your gym. That might be the set amount. If you eat out, for example, cigarettes, you would put those things in there. And again, if they don't guess them, so if you're not 100% sure what they might be, then we will, you can use the next tab that I'm going to come on to work those out more accurately. You've got clothes, hair, your hairdresser. You might know you might go you definitely go every 8 weeks. I'm a bit sort of more lapsed and probably go every 3 or 4 months. You might have a regular window cleaner. You might not. You might get the papers every Sunday. You might not. You might have a boiler insurance policy. You might not. You might have a cleaner. You might not. You might have childcare costs if you're a new mum, for example. You might have childcare costs, or a mum in general has childcare costs. But if you're a new mum, you'll definitely have maybe additional baby food and toiletries that wouldn't necessarily be included in your food. Which I'm just looking for food. Where's it gone? There we go. We've got food there. So they're the main outgoings, and again you can look at your bank statements and look over the last 3 months to see where you currently are. Now again, can be a bit of a painful process, but I promise you, by assessing out exactly where you are now without just guessing it, you're setting on the right path on the first step. That is actually a clear and calculated path, rather than sort of a luck and a fair wind. Now the thing with food, again, people think they spend maybe 80, 60, 120, whatever it might be a week, but what I generally find is I have my normal main shop, but then I also have all the little extras. Maybe when I go and get my petrol, I might get a loaf of bread and some milk. So it's really a good exercise to actually sit down and look at it sort of from a bird's eye view, a bit like an accountant would, and analyse it as much as you feel you're able to. So that's where we're going with just the food. And then we have green, which is your annual. Now the ideal situation is for you not to say what some people find is, okay, I've got my car repair that's a if you've got an older car, maybe it will put winter tyres on. You know that you've got your road tax to pay, or your licence fees to pay on it. So if you know that's coming each year, you can account for it each month and break that down into a monthly cost, because not everybody has sort of this backup emergency fund of £5,000-6,000 to go, it's okay, I can just use my savings. I find most people don't, and if you have, that's fantastic, but the everyday person, I generally find that they don't, so they end up putting it on their credit card, which puts them into this sort of spiral. So if you know that you've got your car tax that's going to be in next year sometime, even if you can't save for the whole amount or allow for the whole amount, even if you save half of it, that's going to go somewhere to actually helping you, if you're in a spiral, to get out of it, or if you're sort of trying to help your savings along, that will help towards it. Credit cards, as we just mentioned, people sometimes pay for their shopping on their credit cards. So if you wouldn't just be looking at your bank statements, you'd be looking at your credit card statements to see actually what you're spending on them, because that might actually break down into other sections within this spreadsheet. if you're paying the minimum payment, say for example you've got a balance on there of 5,000 and you're paying a minimum payment, then you would just put the minimum payment in here. We're not talking about, you know, clearing your debt. We can come on to that when we're talking about the red column, which is savings, and sort of balancing those things out. But at the moment we're just talking about where you're currently at. Sometimes with credit cards you can pay more than your minimum. You can opt to pay, you know, £100 or £150. Some people pay the minimum, but then they actually then sporadically, when they can, make lump sum overpayments. I see some people doing this where they've spent on their credit card over the last 2-3 months, and then they're trying to quickly pay it off. And again, that sort of can be on the wrong footing, because they shouldn't be using their credit cards for any emergency transactions as such. If it's sort of they're using it to build up credit points, for example, or, you know, maybe they're using their Nectar points, because you get double Nectar points with a Sainsbury's credit card. Ideally, we should be in a position where we can get ahead of ourselves and we start using our savings to pay for those transactions. So if it's clothes, it would be, you'd have a budget for clothes, for example. Okay, so the next thing to talk about, and these two columns here, I can't emphasize enough how important these two are here. Now, if you don't think that the rest of this is detailed enough, there's a huge amount of additional outgoings that I see people, whether you're earning 15,000 or 150,000, that they will have no quite understanding about where their money goes. Some people are very, very good, in which case they wouldn't be on this webinar, to be quite honest. They'd already have a spreadsheet and they'd know to the penny exactly what they're spending. Some people are like that and they want to see if they can actually do any better because they love it, which is great. You're like my best friends. So whether you're earning a lot of money or a little money, I find that they all are in a position where someone's just messaging me. I'm just making sure there's no popping up questions or any problems. Bear with me. Can't see any questions or anything else. Okay, great. I'll go back to the spreadsheet. Okay, so I went to see a client, for example, who was on an awful lot of money. I went through his expenditure, what he told me, and I said, you've got £2,000 spare a month. No, I haven't. Did you include this? Did you include that? Yes, 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 yes. And I added up, checked it twice on my calculator, and he couldn't quite understand where all his spending had gone. In honesty, I think it was his wife spending a lot of money at John Lewis, but I couldn't really say that. So what's the good thing to do is that once you've gone through your bank statements, if you've got a pen or a highlighter, you can cross off all the transactions that we've done so far, and then you can see actually, right, what's left. What are the other transactions? Now, some of them will be cash transactions. And this is where you can use this here. So we have two sections, which is called other essential and other non-essential. Okay. So first of all, let's do other essential. So I'll give you an example. I have a dog walker. So to me, that's quite an essential. I can't really go without her, but it's not something that's on my budget list because it's quite personal, I guess, and these are sort of like little one-off transactions here and there that can go under the radar and not see them so clearly on your bank statements. So what I've done here is I've added up in the month, month one, out of my bank statements I've got laid out in front of me, how much I've spent in the month, which has come to £100. Then month 2 it was 75, and then month 3 it was 50. So this little spreadsheet will add it all up and average it out for you. So it tells you what the average. So I know for my dog walker I average £75. Now you can add other things. I've just got one example. You can add other examples. You might have 10 on there, and it will give you the total. So for myself, for my other essential items, it's £75. Now you may want to use this for your petrol or one of your other, maybe if you smoke, for example, something that's sort of quite erratic that you can't work out quite so easily. So on here I would put £75. Okay. Going back to this one, which is other non-essential. Now these to me are things that I need and want. So need is essential, want is non-essential. So cost of coffee, to me is a non-essential. I want it, I don't need it. Some people need their coffee, but that's just a matter of opinion, I guess. And what I've done there is I've worked out that one month I spent £20, the next month I spent 30, the month after that I spent 15. So it averages it out at 21.61. And again, you can add other items as you go through your bank statements. You can see what's not been crossed off, and you can start to fill in the gaps. Now, excuse me if I do talk quite fast, and I do apologise. Hopefully we're all keeping up, and it's if you have any questions you can pop them in the box, but I'm being told that I can't see them. People are putting them in there and I might not be seeing them. So I've got 21.67 as my average, so I would then put in there 21.67. Is that what I said? Yes, it was. There we go. So what this would do, once you've put all these different figures in here, whatever it is you might be popping in, you can just change them as your heart's content. What it'll do at the bottom is it'll give you the total of that column there in total. Okay, so that's the total for each column. What we come on to next is the same column, so Mr. Mrs. joint. Again, you can change those as necessary, and you'd put in basic net income per month. So that's your net amount. So if you're self-employed, what you pay yourself, and I'll come on to that in a second. If you're employed, what hits your bank account. So this example, I've just put there, jointly own 100, Mrs. earns 100, Mr. earns 100. You can also have people that have a second income. You might have child tax credits or any other benefits, and again I've just put in £100 for each of those columns. Sometimes when it comes to join, actually what they might do is say, oh, well, I net 2,000, well actually I net 3,000, but £1,000 goes over to my joint account. So they'd put then in there 2,000 that's in my account, but 1,000 that goes over to my joint account. So you can play around with it, or you might just say, well, actually I just know that it's 3,000, that's fine. It might come out of your joint account, but in which case then you need to make sure these are all left blank to make sure that it sort of all adds up correctly. It just depends on how efficient you want to be with this. If you want to see who's paying for what, how much is coming out of one account, you know, how much you want to play around with it. It's your tool. You can use it how you wish. So what this does for you is it adds up the total income for that individual calculations in here. And what it will do is that total, it will take away the total outgoing. So that's the incoming, that's the outgoing, and it'll tell you what the difference is. So here it's saying that you've got £266.67 going out, you've got £200 coming in, therefore you're minus 67. Here we're 2,980 up, and here we're £100 up. The big red box is what we have spare. So it actually adds all these up, whether it's a minus or a plus, it will give you the end big figure. So notice it's red, so I'm just going to refer back to this savings. What we want to be doing is we want to be in a situation where really, if you've got that much spare each month, you can start to go, whoa, have I included everything for a start? What have I missed? What am I spending but I've not actually budgeted for it? Maybe it's going on a credit card and you've not actually allowed for it. So that's to start off with. But if we're talking about a situation where you know, there is a little bit spare, then it's saying to yourself, right, well, maybe I just need to be saving £20. Maybe that's where I should be starting, okay? Because there's surprises. There's things that come up in the month. And there's just one little box here that I haven't mentioned, and that's the reason I'm coming back to it now. I'm just going to highlight it here in green, and that's month ahead events. So what you can start to do now is you can look at your month ahead and say, right, whose birthday have I got coming up? What do is happening? What wedding have I got? Have I got an outfit I've got to buy? Have I got to buy a card, a presents and flowers? Now you can't allow for people being sick and unknown things, but maybe if you know if someone's having a baby, if you know those things are coming, it just means that you can start to budget for them. So if you know, okay, I've got £93 spare, but I've got a birthday party to go to and I've got a wedding to go to, now I'm going to allow £50 for that, okay? It will automatically tell you that leaves you £43. So I'm hoping you find that helpful. So the more you use it, the more you put into it, the more it will tell you back. Now, what I'd like to talk to you about is a couple of little tips that you can help yourself going forward. when you're going through these items, you will probably find that there's things for you to look at and to review. Not everyone reviews their outgoings that regularly. You might find discrepancies, things that have come out of your bank statement you didn't expect, things that you didn't realise were quite as much as that. So make a note of it, and do follow up with the company in mind. Check it out, don't leave it. Also, make a note of the review dates. If you have buildings and contents insurance, for example, give yourself at least 4 weeks before that comes up for renew, and put it on your iPhone 4 weeks beforehand, or on your family calendar, or whatever it might be. Just keep an eye on it, basically. When it comes to generally where you are, with which we've got Sky, your mobile phone, what else? Your gas, your electric, not so much your water, can't really fiddle around with that. Car insurance comes up annually, again make a review date in place for that. But the things that sort of are ongoing but you necessarily wouldn't think about reviewing, just try and do it once a year. It's like a bit of a spring clean. If you've got something that all sort of falls in the same sort of line, try and do it once a year all together in one go, rather than giving yourself a job every month. I mean, you might prefer to do it that way. You might get it done more efficiently if you did it that way. Whatever works for you, really. I've recently looked at my, I've got a BT contract, and I'm changing away from them, so I'm saving some money there. I've come away now from British Gas, and I'm with another provider. So it's always really, really good to review those things. If you want any tips or hints personally, then message me, and I'm happy to sort of point you in the right direction. I wouldn't necessarily put those on the webinar because it's sort of more personalised, really. The sorts of things that I can help you with as additional to that is your mortgage, your life insurance, endowments, pensions, loans as well, buildings and contents, any of those bits and pieces. If you want any help with, you're welcome to come back to me. There's no pressure. I'm not here to sort of sell my services as such. I'm just here to sort of lend a hand and impart some knowledge, really. So one of the other things that you can do to help with your money is to think about these things that go out each month. How can you manage them more efficiently? So one of the ways that I've suggested to so many clients, and they've found really, really helpful, is things like the petrol. I'll give that as an example. Let's just say you've worked out on average you're spending £150 a month in petrol, but you're finding it quite hard to be strict with yourself, or you're on a really tight budget, you're really trying to be ultra lean and efficient with your finances, then what you can do is you actually take that money out as cash. Okay, you can either fill the tank up completely, depends on where your tank's sitting, or you put that £150, well, I've got a big car and I couldn't spend £150 on it, but you'd put that money aside basically. You can put it into 4 envelopes for 4 weeks, and you write on the front petrol money, excuse that box popping up, petrol money, and then each week you take out the allowed amount for that week, and once that money's gone, it's gone. It just means that you can be much more. Once you start doing this, you'll start to be thinking more, because it's quite easy just to get in the car and spend petrol money, especially if we've got the bank cards or if we've got things to use to hand and we've got money in the account. We're not always thinking about what actually we're spending our money on. We're just spending it because we need to get in the car and go somewhere. We justify it to ourselves. And you can do that with a number of things, whether it's your cigarettes, for example, whether it's your general bits and pieces, like your food shopping. That's quite a good one if you've got a weekly food shop and you actually like to go into the store. Then you give yourself a weekly allowance to spend in the store, because with Asda and Sainsbury's and all those places you end up buying clothes and shoes and stuff and other things potentially, especially for the kids, whereas if you've got a set amount, you've only got a set amount to spend. So that can be a really good way of doing that. Jam jars, if you don't like envelopes, you can have jars and you can have it written on the front to actually what it's for. So there's some just really good things to start doing. I've got a video on my website. The blog's called www.evolutionforwomen.co.uk/changing money habits. And this is a video here. It's about 8 minutes long, and I talk about in this detoxing, and I talk about how to detox, and it's basically a 3-month program, but it's you detox for 1 month and then you have a 2-month follow-up program. So if you're interested, just after this, pop on and listen to it. I could play it now. It's 8 minutes long, but if it's something you're interested in, then that will explain it in a little bit. Taking your time, and it will go through it. But there's some really good little tips in there as well. Okay, so I've covered, I think, quite a lot. I think I've covered everything I wanted to cover. The main things to think about is, consider having a detox. Certainly look at where you are now and then looking back on it and saying, right, that is my plan for the next month. We're on the 31st. If you do this tomorrow, it'll mean you'll start November with a great start. The other thing to think about is about what your long-term goals are, what your short-term goals are. So where this savings, what is that savings for? Is it just for an emergency fund? We normally say as financial planners that everyone should have around minimum of 3 times their monthly outgoings in the bank. So if your total outgoings are, say, £1,000, then you should have £3,000 in savings. So if something happened to you drastically, you've got 3 months backup. Sometimes for some people that's not possible, so I sort of say a minimum of 500. So if the washing machine broke, or something happened at work, you weren't getting the overtime hours that you normally expect, you've got something to fall back on. So that's the one big thing. And in terms of goals, really sort of drill down what it is you're looking for, because some people use vision boards, and I talk about this in the video. We talk about having that holiday to Florida or whatever it might be, but then we go and we have a takeaway every week, and we wonder where all our money goes. We're sort of a bit doomed to ourselves, really, and we can get ourselves in such a negative spiral about money, but it's actually the small decisions that we're making that can affect the bigger things overall, which sounds like it's such common sense. But if we have a really sort of a goal in mind, that long-term goal that we can really make us happy and motivated and proud, and it just can make such a difference to our everyday life and getting up and going to work, what we're going to achieve today, sort of thing. Now, I've got an extra little nugget for those that are in business, especially if you haven't got an accountant. What I just wanted to talk to you about here is the next tab along is called Business Budget. I'm just going to pop over and make sure I've got no questions. No, there's no one there asking me any questions. Excellent. So what you can do with this is you can pop up here your name. You can if you're a sole trader, you can just put your name in there. If you do have a name for your business, and you can put the name in. Again, this you can use this how you like. And this is quite super duper, but I'm just going to go through it from quite a basic level for you to work out what your business expenditures are. So what I've put in here is the sales income. So this is what's coming in as an income, and we have £1,000 as a basic sales income. So if you had more than other incomes, you can add them all up and it will put the total in there for you. Then we have what's a direct cost. So you might have, I don't know, printing, for example, might have an item that costs, or marketing or something that costs a one-off sort of £150. Again, your direct cost would be added up as £150. And then down here we have our overhead cost. So that gives you your gross profit. So if we take 100,000 minus 150, we'll give you your gross profit. And these figures you can play around with. I mean, I've just picked 100 grand out of the sky. And then you have overhead costs. So you have rent, you have rates, builder's insurance, your phone, your stationery, any salaries if you have paying anyone. Again, you can just change these to what you like. It won't affect anything. And you can add these figures in. Again, if you're using a personal account as if it's a business account, my advice is that you don't. My advice is that whatever you're using as a tax deductible outgoing, you have that coming out of a business account. Now, some people don't want that cost. They think it's going to cost a lot of money. A lot of them don't cost that much money, so do research and find the best one for you. But even if you just temporarily, whilst you're researching, put it into a separate account. Now that will take time in terms of setting up direct debits, so if you are considering actually getting a proper business account, then you might be just worthwhile waiting. But whatever way you decide to do it, it's your personal decision, is to have them separate, because then you can clearly list all exactly what is your business outgoings. Some people have drawings. Now that's more for people that are like a limited company, and your accountant would talk to you about that. But as you can see, my outgoings overhead costs are £100, so my overhead costs are £100. It's got on here total payments to 50, and then that's taken away from the gross. That gives me a total profit. Now, really, in reality, to make this more useful for you, we're just going to put in here, let's say that's £2,000. We're going to use it as like a monthly income. Okay, that's the best way to relate to this budget plan that we're talking about on the other page. So if you know you're getting 2,000 gross, you take down your business outgoings, and that gives you a net amount that you receive each month. Now, that net amount should be what goes over here as your net salary. Okay, so these outgoings are up here, like for your phone. If you've got a business, they're not a personal expenditure, they're a business expenditure. And if you need help with that, then I know lots of lovely accountants and bookkeepers, so you can ask me, it's absolutely fine. But it's good to differentiate between the two, so you can clearly see what you need to earn for your business to run, what you need to earn personally for your household to run. And there's a big difference between the two, and a lot of people that are sole traders, working for themselves, working from home, don't work like that. But it can really help you manage your money and be more efficient with your money and plan your money, and be also more tax efficient as well. If you're new and you haven't started up a business yet, and you're at that point where you're looking at maybe starting a business, then this little tab here is called Setting Up a Business. And this is, again, you can make it as complicated as you like, but really what I've put on here is just your equipment costs and your setup first month costs, because everyone has sort of setup costs, and it's just really adding up what your costs are. So on here I put £10 as a one-off capital cost, and then I put a £20 a month in my first month as a startup cost, so that gives us a total of £30. So if you have like maybe a project you want to run, or you are thinking about starting a new business, then you can use that as a sort of a startup calculator, really. Okay, so we're now coming up to 9 o'clock, so I'm just going to check the box to see if there's any questions. If you've got anything you want to ask me, do pop it in. However, I'm finding that that really, I'm not sure if it's working. Somebody said that they have messaged me, but I'm not actually seeing if it's working or not. So I'm just going to pop over to the Facebook page and see if anyone's messaged me over here. Do excuse me for a second. Oh no, okay. So okay, well, no one's got any questions then. I hope you found that helpful. Do go and check out the Changing Money Habits here on this video. Also, if you go to on my website, I've got a section called Freebies, and on here I've got a Christmas budget planner. So if you're worried about Christmas is coming up and we're talking about budgeting, then you can actually use this Christmas budget planner. So one of the things you can do with the calculator is you can put aside like what you want to spend, and then you can, when you've bought the presents, you can put in what you spent, and you can see where you are, and you can do that as like a running costing. So I'm going to sort of leave you there. I hope you found that helpful. Do give me feedback. I'd really love to hear what you thought about the webinar, even if it's personally directly to me, myself. You can message me on Facebook. You've got my email address, which is just on the screen there. You've got my mobile number and our main landline, so do get in touch. If it's fabulous and you really found it helpful, do let me know on the Facebook page. Let us know what you thought. Then that would encourage other people to come and maybe listen in the future. So I'm going to love you and leave you. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and thank you so much for listening. Take care.